Taylor, RGVTruth. What's happening, man?
How's it going? Glad to be back.
New year, what's the word I'm looking for here? New resolve. And I think you just said it right before we start recording. And I'm going to ask you to say it again. People think we're out of the woods and this is all over.
Yeah, we're not even close to being out of the woods yet. There's so much going on. We have to look into everybody Trump's appointed. We just have to stay super vigilant. No matter who's in charge of the government, governments are meant to control people. So we need to just stay very vigilant to that. And we've got a lot of open borders, Marxist groups. There's 20 million plus illegal aliens. I'd say a lot more than that in the country. They have the numbers to start doing some really nefarious things. We've got basically the border's been open for so long that anything that happens anywhere in the world is happening in America for a rule of thumb.
So if you don't mind, 'cause it's been a little while since you've been on here, just touch on your background for people that don't know.
So I moved down to the Rio Grande Valley, escaped communism on the West Coast. I was living in the greater Seattle area, but on the other side of the Puget Sound there, where it's a little more working class. But it was just getting so bad there. There was no more middle class. It was either you are a protected wildlife, drug addict, which I mean, those people got, carte blanche. They got all the social services, everything. They'd rob something from their house. The cops wouldn't even go after them. So you're either, the middle class was so small there. You're either basically a homeless guy on the street or a rich tech guy, and there wasn't a lot of in between. So I said, I just got to get out, go to Texas, and never heard of the Rio Grande Valley. Saw that it was cheap living. Moved down here, loved it. Within a year of moving down here, the election got stolen. Started hearing the helicopters go over my house at night. Picked up a GoPro and just went out there. And it's been an amazing learning experience these last couple of years. And this is what I'm made to do. This is absolutely what I want to do with my life. Expose what's going on, globally. There is so much happening in the Rio Grande Valley right now. It's kind of a globalist playground. And we've got local politicians opening up big trade deals with Mexico. We have big open borders Marxist groups down here. We have child sexualization programs, kids drag shows, and we have just about every police department down here on the take, completely corrupt, and they don't even care. So that's kind of my mission.
Yeah, I had Auden on yesterday, and we were talking. I brought up the point of, they were never interested in closing that border the last 4 years, and I don't know about you. The same thing I said to Auden. I didn't see the CEO of FedEx or UPS or any of these other carriers on the Hill testifying why they weren't doing more to, combat the amount of drugs that were flowing in here. I didn't see any of that, which tells me there was no interest.
No, and it's and you have a lot of what's so-called Republicans, whatever you want to call it, that don't want it to end either, because that's what they've campaigned on. There's a lot of people that have campaigned on just being the border guy or whatever. And then if the border is fixed, then what do they have, right? What can they fundraise on? So I've seen that a lot locally with GOPs and stuff like that. Nobody wants this madness to end because the money was just flowing like crazy. And I was out in the this was in the Arizona desert, talking to a border patrol agent who was a whistleblower, and he told me something very interesting. Because I said, "What do you think about this whole border thing? It's been going on for a long time. I mean, as long as you've been here, you've been there a long time. Not just these last couple of years, but what do you really think of this whole thing?" And he goes, "Well, when the Democrats are in power, they shift a bunch of money to the NGOs, which we saw in the last 4 years, and when the Republicans are in power, they shift a lot of money to defense contractors to make body cams and different systems for border patrol, new toys for them." So what you really see Congress fighting over, what you've seen Congress fighting over in the last 4 years, a lot of them, because there's been some good people in there too, but a lot of them are fighting over, where does this money go? Does it go to the NGOs or does it go to the defense contractors? Not, let's close the border and keep people safe.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your thoughts then when, or not even when Trump won, but as the new administration's come in this week?
I've felt seems like there's a weight off of everybody. People can kind of breathe. I'm seeing people speak their mind again. People were so afraid to use the word illegal alien or things like that. People are becoming more having more pride in the United States and realizing that we need to be a sovereign country. And we're done. People are just done having their sympathy weaponized against them. You know, just like we saw with this that woman who's crying at the border. That doesn't work anymore. That real popular video that's going around. That doesn't work on people anymore. We've had enough of that. We have enough mothers crying because their kids aren't coming home because of illegal aliens and stuff like that. You can ask the angel moms about that. So I'm seeing some really good things, and I'm also like that. I'm seeing a lot of people, especially on X, are questioning the Trump administration, are questioning Elon Musk, and digging into things. You always need to question everything. You can't ever take a break on that, no matter who's in power.
Are you feeling the skepticism, or how are you feeling about the people that have been put in place so far, like Tom, in relation to what you do? Tom Hallman, well, Kash Patel hasn't been confirmed yet, but and Pete Hegseth would fall into that category too, right? Which he hasn't been confirmed yet.
Right. So I don't follow politics too much. Of course, I've been watching what's going on lately. My job is politics adjacent, but honestly, I've just seen politics and politicians as just gatekeeping and time waste, and they're doing a completely different thing than what I do. And the way they go about it is very different. So I try to stay out of it, as much as I can, because it doesn't seem to benefit me. Anytime I expose a politician down here, I just get the sycophants attacking me, and they still get voted in. So as far as Homan and all that stuff, I think what we've got going right now is good, and we're just gonna have to wait and see to the future. What I'm really interested in is, what is this definition of criminal alien? Who are they really looking to deport? I know they want the felons out first and everything, but I would say all illegal aliens are criminals in this country. Trump did talk about, before he was elected, there was a speech a while back where he's saying we need to bring in more Venezuelans. I mean, we're going to have a lot of manufacturing in this country that he wants to bring back, so maybe they want to fill the factories full of non-Americans. We don't know yet. But again, I am sitting and waiting and seeing what's happening, because, again, these guys are at such a high level and have been doing this for so long. I don't know the inner workings. I don't know how to skirt the bureaucrats and everything else. So the hand they're playing, or their hand they're showing, might not be their, the hand that they're holding for this whole time. And it's a lot more complicated, and I can respect the fact that they're doing chess moves and so much else. So I think it's a little early to really see, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. ICE is already deporting people. They said down here in the Rio Grande Valley sector that they're just deporting people without even doing the asylum claims, which is excellent. Just put them right back over the bridge. And that's how it should have been this whole time.
Have you seen any of that so far? Anybody? They just take them right over the bridge. What do they do? Do they take them over the bridge and just drop them off?
So in Eagle Pass, you can watch it all the time. There's a bridge. It's it's right by the train bridge. They will it'd be POE2, train bridge area. There is a little footpath. What they do is they round the guys up, put them in a van, and then just put them through a one-way gate and make them walk back into Mexico. Now, is it a revolving door? Yes, but you still have to pay the criminal elements to get back across, usually. Sometimes you can sneak through. So every time you have to go through again, you're dealing with these violent criminal elements, and you're going to have to pay again, which is going to be a big deterrent for people coming back over. But like Abbott putting those buoys out in the river, it's just, that doesn't do anything. I've seen those buoys. You can put out all the sea wire in the world. That doesn't work. It's policy. As long as these people touch American soil, Border Patrol processes them and releases them, they're going to keep coming, no matter how rude, mean, whatever kind of fight Abbott wants to put up against it. Unless you're not going to be forceful and use the full might of the Texas military, it would either have to be that or the change in policy that we've seen.
So is Eagle Pass locked down right now? Or, I mean, what's the status of it?
Well, so the thing, Eagle Pass, when I first started going, is wide open. And it's interesting. So the Maverick County Sheriff, I just saw a post that he is not going to cooperate with ICE. When I first started going out there to Eagle Pass, we had some Maverick County Sheriff deputies that would actually let us go flush illegals out of the woods, and they would tackle them. I mean, we were working together, high-fiving each other, having a great time. And that within a year changed, pretty quick. where I think all the law enforcement guys pretty much got the memo that don't be on camera, don't share your feelings about what's going on, just process the people and move on, or you'll be fired. We saw law enforcement go from our buddies to our enemies very quickly. They were telling us we couldn't be on public roads, threatening to arrest us, gaslighting us the whole time. So after they locked it down, after Abbott did his big, show there, which by the way, he was in India when this all happened, people forget. So he wasn't even there when this big Shelby Park showdown went down with Border Patrol and DPS. So after that Shelby Park thing happened, it changed. There was an island in the middle of that river that they used to rape girls on, and the coyotes would hang out on. They mowed that down, plowed that down. They put up the sea wire. It looked more like a DMZ, kind of area than the park that it was, and it's been really locked up since then. So far, I haven't been out there in a while, but yeah, it's pretty locked down, and I'd say it's pretty darn quiet right now. You can't use the boat ramp anymore. It's basically just been turned into an operating base for Operation Lone Star, and they, even if you're allowed on some of those public roads, they're going to fight you. They don't want anybody out there.
Law enforcement's going to fight you.
They're gonna push back against you.
Right. So what about I was reading troops that are going to be sent deployed there. Have you seen any of that yet?
I've not seen any of that, but there's been troops on the border for a long time. And again, unless you have the policy in place, it doesn't really do anything. It's just a show. I think they're going to do something. Absolutely. We've already seen it. So, but that's the thing. We can't just go, oh, there's troops going to the border, we're good. Well, we got to follow up on that. So I will be doing that this week. I've driven to a couple of POEs, haven't seen anything out of the usual, haven't seen long CBP1 lines, like right before Trump got elected or anything. So it's pretty slow at the border. There's still people I know that are trying to get in even to Central America. There's people in Asia right now I know trying to get into Central America. They're going to take use coyotes through Mexico. And so now the option is illegal entry only. So it's going to get... I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to evade Border Patrol and getting through. I'm going to guess the California area is going to be big on that because they have the least amount of law enforcement presence.
What about Arizona, where I live?
I think, how is your state doesn't have anything like Operation Lone Star, correct? They don't have any.
No. I mean, we have a substandard of a human running the state right now, and Katie Hobbs. Right. And Adrian Fontes has always been rumored to be was an attorney for the cartels.
Right.
That's our Secretary of State, and then our Attorney General is a woman named Chris Mays, who's lock, stock, and barrel with those two.
Mm-hmm. So, the reason I asked, hey, do you have an Operation Lone Star? Yeah, only Texas has that. California and Arizona are not really assisting Border Patrol. There's some good sheriff's departments I've heard of out in Southern California. Kind of way out there in the rural areas. But other than that, there is no unified state response. So all you have is Border Patrol. And we saw, you guys have seen Border Patrol get overwhelmed in Arizona many times. So, I think California more than anything, just because I've seen when I've been in California, it seems to be the most desolate and most kind of, you're just not a lot of law enforcement at the border, not a lot of Border Patrol either. I've been out there and not seen law enforcement for a whole day. In Arizona, I think the Border Patrol stations are a little better set up, and it's a little easier for them to get around out there. But I think California is the place.
What are your thoughts on, Trump had, and I'm paraphrasing here, but hinted at the idea of declaring war on the cartels, or maybe he already did that, but the idea if they were to...
the executive order.
Yes, right. And what I mean by that is hinting at the idea of some type of military attack on the cartels.
So designating the cartels as a terrorist organization is huge. Nobody ever wanted to do it. It was the elephant in the room. They were just ignoring it because if you designate them terrorists, we fought wars on terror. We went to the Middle East. It's a whole other story. So we're all, the American government's supposed to be so against terror. If we deem them terrorists in Mexico, then we're going to have to do something about it. And no president wanted to kind of, start another Vietnam or Iraq where we get mired down with, with a guerrilla war, and we have the people turn against us. So I think it's great, and from everything I've seen, it looks like it's going to be highly motivated, very specialized units going in doing their strikes, or whatever they're going to do. What I am concerned with all that is, I haven't been down to my regular places in Mexico too recently. When I was there, maybe about a month before Trump got elected, people were not too friendly to the gringo. You know what I mean? Last year, it was all like a big party down at the camps, at the migrant camps in Mexico on the border. Everybody's hanging out, cooking stuff, having a good time, drinking beers. And from the last time I was down there, it was not the same. It had a very different energy. A lot of bad guys coming through. Not so many CBP-1, families. A lot of just military-aged males. So they're going to be looking for gringos. They're going to be really. I mean, I'm telling you, Mexico has probably the best intelligence network I've ever seen. The criminal elements there, it's just amazing. They know everything. As soon as you step foot in their territory, they know. So
how do they, Taylor? Let me interrupt you. How are they so? How do they have it so well orchestrated?
it's the culture. I can tell you down here too in the Rio Grande Valley, it's the culture. People don't talk to police. When you call the police, they usually cause more problems than good. They don't usually find the bad guys. I just had a thing recently where someone assaulted me at a protest, and the police said, "Yeah, we're not looking into that here. You can go fill something out at the station." The woman was standing right there, and they refused to ID her and everything. So people they kind of lose their trust in law enforcement down here. Law enforcement down here is extremely corrupt. So that's half of it right there. That lends itself big time for criminal elements to grow in this area. And the other big part is, no matter who you are, and people down here are so good at counter intel and finding out about people. As soon as you come down here and they know you're not from here, they're going to ask you, who do you work for? What are you doing down here? Because it's for them, it's odd for white people to be down here. And if you say you're from the Valley, say you're Hispanic trying to blend in, if you're not from the Valley, they're going to find out like that. Because the first couple questions is, where'd you go to school and who are your parents? Everybody knows everybody down here. So people are always collecting information. That's just kind of the way they work down here. And you don't have to be connected to anybody nefarious. If that guy with the big, gold belt buckle and the lifted truck comes by your house and knocks on the door and goes, "What do you know about this guy?" You're going to tell him everything you know, because you don't want problems with these guys. Because let's just say I was on the Mexican side of the border getting my hair cut at this little barber shop I used to go to. Big, sitting there waiting to get my hair cut, big plate glass window in front of me. And I see there's a pretty famous video of like a criminal, I call them criminal elements, but the criminal element convoys, the up armored Brinks looking trucks all spray painted and camoed up. I saw a convoy of them. Was it 2 armored cars and then 2 technicals, 2 pickup trucks with mounted machine guns and about 10 guys hanging off each one. Full kit, full battle rattle, all brand new stuff, and chest rigs and everything. And I turn around and I say, "Hey guys, did you just see that?" And the barber goes, "See what? We didn't see anything." So they don't exist down there. That's how locked up tight it is. You do not ever talk about them. If you were to go to Mexico and start using the C word and saying that stuff, people are going to get very uncomfortable. People are going to leave, the restaurant or wherever you're hanging out, because it's a very serious threat down there. I think it was maybe about 4 months ago, there was a man who went on local television in Mexico in the Tamaulipas area. And he said, "Hey man," he was the head of the Rotary Club or something down there. And he says, "Hey, we're getting taxed by these criminal elements down here. It's not right. We get taxed by the government, then by them." And within an hour of that interview airing, they killed him.
But on the American side, it's the same type of intimidation.
This is the Rio Grande Valley. I'll maybe put a link in the comments here for this. Mayor Villalobos down here was on I think it was an ABC interview, and he said something that really stuck with me. And he says, "I like to think of the Rio Grande Valley as a place strategically located in between 2 countries, 2 very powerful countries." So he's saying the Rio Grande Valley is not America, it's not Mexico, it's its own thing, which makes it kind of harks back to the DNA contract and this being one big free, economic trade zone with no real borders. The Rio Grande Valley, as I jokingly put it, is Mexico with better paved roads. The corruption, everything is the same.
But it's technically American.
Yeah. It's South Texas, yes.
Right.
but it's its own bubble. It's like this very I don't think there's anywhere else like it.
Well, so Trump's declaring the cartels as a terrorist organization. Let's just say hypothetically, you start utilizing drones to maybe take out key members. My concern is this is something Auden and I were talking about a little bit yesterday. Is the fact that, like, I'm in Phoenix. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's a lot of cartel in Phoenix. They're not going to just sit idly if this were to start occurring and pack up and get out of here, right?
Mm-hmm. No. Well, and they've been here forever, so they're juiced in with everybody. They have all the connections they need to get whatever they need done. And the big thing they do on this side is they try not to make too many waves. Now, there's different criminal elements for different areas on the border. Down here, they seem to be much more business oriented. In other places, the ones that aren't, the criminal organizations that aren't as established have to make a name for themselves, and those are the more violent ones. The ones that have been doing it for a long time are much more about business, and they don't want anything to rock the boat. They want to, kind of conceal themselves as best they can. So I think out where you're at, you have a more violent faction. They could absolutely kidnap some politicians on this side. They could do, a lot of things like that. But for the most part, I think their main goal is just to keep the inventory coming through so they can keep their money and keep their power.
Oh, so you don't fear as much of like a 9/11 style attack, blow up a building, do something very...
Not from them, no. No, I mean, not saying that they couldn't do something in mass, but that just doesn't seem to be their style. I think they're playing more chess than checkers for sure.
So they wouldn't do something so blatant that would draw that much attention to themselves?
I don't think so, because it just doesn't seem like the smart idea to do. But again, well, how much crazy stuff do we see in the last couple of years? Anything's possible.
Yeah, really. Also, too, and I've talked about this. I've compared the cartels to Big Pharma. They're not going to just go willingly, the cartels, and just surrender. If this thing, do you anticipate this could possibly go kinetic between the United States government and the cartels?
It will. It has in the past. There's absolutely been clandestine missions. And also, well, here's the other thing, too. So they're going to send, I think, some Marines down to train, or they're going to send American military to train some of the Mexican Navy, the Marines and stuff down there. That's how the Zetas were created, was Americans going down and equipping and training Mexican authorities. And basically what happened was as soon as they were kitted up and fully trained, the criminal elements said, "That's a nice army. How much do you want for it?" And then they just started working for the criminal elements. So that's what you have to remember about Mexico. The people change sides so quickly. There's some good people in the Mexican police, in the different departments and the federales, but they have to keep things so quiet they can't tell the guy sitting next to them about it, because it's just, the intelligence gathering in Mexico is just that good. And the money's just unlimited.
And the cartels they're in every major city in the United States.
100%. Absolutely.
What about traveling to Mexico right now? This is something I asked Auden yesterday too, like Cancun, Cabo, those touristy places. God, I'm blanking out. You can drive here from Phoenix.
Like Rocky Point?
Rocky Point, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you recommend going to those places if you're an American right now?
I'd say the resort places are fine, business as usual. If you're going to do, go to pick up prescriptions or whatever, I don't think there'd be much of a problem. Hanging out in the migrante camps, stuff like that, going to the NGOs, they're going to be a bit nervous, I'm sure. And they all have criminal element liaisons. Every NGO has a guy, that kind of stands outside and is able to kind of, they'll be able to pick you up from a distance and, kind of keep track of you. Not that they're going to follow you around town, but they're going to know you're there. Start asking too many questions or the wrong questions, they're going to make it known that, to get out of there. Under Biden, under the last administration, it was very risky going to other countries because we knew if you get kidnapped, it's not what it was for, how many decades. We always knew that you never kidnap Americans because they would use the full force of the military and destroy, whatever gang kidnapped them. And under Biden, we saw oil tankers taken by Iran. We saw people kidnapped and nothing happened. now that the Trump administration's back in, I think we have, I think people respect and fear the military now. So I'd say, your regular tourist stuff is fine, but for what I do need to be careful down there, and I just need to go down and kind of dip my toe in and see what what the atmospherics are, what the energy's like down there, and make my decisions from there because, it's you just never know down there with so much geopolitical stuff changing. It's a domino effect. You never know, one executive order affects this thing, that thing, and the other.
What would you say the risk factor is for you right now? Things that you were doing over the last 4 years and going to do that today?
It's a roll of the dice, which is life, right? Just I don't like to think in those terms too much. I just stay positive and do what I need to do. But I'll tell you, it's so funny. If people who love to carry guns and are always about self-defense in the United States, I was the same way. And then you got to go fly to some country and you're unarmed. You're not even allowed to have a knife on you, and you got to go, do the story, and or report on stuff. And you just kind of get used to it. You just go, you know what? If bad things happen, they happen, and if they don't, they don't. You just got to take your chances, be smart. But my main thing is I try to stay 10 steps ahead of any bad situation. So just kind of, know what you're doing, keep your head on a swivel, and if you've got that gut feeling that something ain't right, get out of there. No story is worth not being able to report on any more stories, right?
What's the most dangerous situation that you've been in to this point?
I don't know if I can speak on all those situations. Let me think of something here. There's definitely been times where I've been in other countries, and they might want to try and take, hey, let's go to this place or this bar, or let's go to someone's house, and they'll try to walk you into a bad part of town. I've been followed by Mexican government and other elements back through the line to get into the United States through the port of entry. I'd say some of the more dangerous stuff has happened in the United States, actually, in the Rio Grande Valley, than in Mexico itself.
Have you been to the airport at McAllen since this week?
No, not this week. Oh, I did just want to add, what's really been dangerous for me is reporting on these open border Marxist groups like Lupe. I was actually just assaulted recently at one of their rallies, and it's the Marxists. Those are the really, you can reason with just about everybody, but these Marxists are so demoralized. They're kind of like rabid animals.
So I want to get to that here in 1 second. So I'm just wondering with the airports, you've seen all these videos like for Hernando and Muckraker with these kids coming out of these vans. I'm just wondering what the status of that, is that stopped?
Oh yeah, that's stopped to a large degree. I haven't been down to the McAllen airport. Let's see, it's been a couple of weeks. But MVM was big, moving people through there. And what Muckraker did at the McAllen airport is great. I live down here, so I do things a little different. I hang back and I just kind of see what's happening. Muckraker was going up and confronting them. And that is great. That's what you need to do. But if you live in the valley, it's going to give you, you know what I mean? People aren't going to want to, they're not going to be as conducive to talk to you if you
you're going to be black booked. Basically, you're going to be black booked by doing that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then you just, there's it's just a different way of doing things. But I mean, God bless Muckraker for doing that, because he had MVM so scared and so, discombobulated, they left all their bags on the ground and, and just took off in a van. I mean, total admission of being guilty right there, right?
Hey man, I'd say God bless all you guys, and the fact that I get to speak with all of you individually. I mean, I said Savannah Hernandez on here last week, and it was just
awesome.
Talking about the different, I don't even want to say lanes, but the different roads that you guys are all. It's a commonality, but you're all in your zones working through, and it's unbelievable. I mean, I try to explain to regular people, and they have no idea, Taylor, what's going on. Like They think they do, but they don't really get it.
They know a surface level, but unless you're, you know what I mean? It's like talking to someone who likes mowing their lawn versus someone who's a professional landscaper. You know what I mean? There's some commonalities, but you don't know the industry side of things, or that kind of stuff. And what happened to Hernando at the San Antonio airport is just absolutely ridiculous. He broke a huge story when they were stashing illegal aliens in the airplane hangars. He was on a public street and he was videotaping it, and they're just like, nope, you're getting arrested. San Antonio Police Department is, I mean, they're just cooked. They are gone. They are, I mean, they're in uniform getting paid by Catholic charities to protect the American Replacement Center, as Hernando calls it, the migrant center there. It's like they're hired mercenaries by Catholic Charities. It's just disturbing. But, you know, it doesn't stop unless you have to have a good lawyer, some kind of legal representation, or else they just see you as a peasant. But once you hurt their wallet, once you can get them to change policy based on them losing money, that's where it really, seems to take effect. And we just have to thank all the good lawyers out there that are working their butt off to help America. Because without the lawyers, it's kind of like you can expose all you want, but if there's not, some legal action that comes after that, a lot of it just kind of gets forgotten.
How about the video from a few years ago with Jorge? I think it was an Eagle Pass, and the guy pulls out a Glock on him.
Yeah. I mean, it's, there's so much going on with law enforcement, and I think it's become very, very toxic. Because guys are always going to follow orders. That's what you do. Military and law enforcement follow orders, and if you don't, that's mutiny. So that's what they're trained to do. So that means that we have to have good people at the top of these law enforcement organizations, or nothing's ever going to get fixed. And we need to get rid of this super ego that the police in this country have taken on, where it doesn't matter what's right or wrong, it's what they say and that's it. Now, there's a lot of probably older people that are thinking I'm speaking Greek right now, but try being a guy in a 20-year-old minivan running around on the border, with dirt on his boots. They don't treat you the same as someone who, has, a couple savings accounts and, might be retired with a good pension. They can see the difference, and man, they just love to go after me. They really love to try and intimidate me.
So talk about, the video that's been floating around, your interview, but the situation that here, I don't want you tell the story, what you were doing.
I spruced up the background a little bit. Yeah. So that was so the video is Wall Street Apes took. It was from Greg Bolden's podcast. God bless Greg Bolden. He's a great guy. So I was actually contacted. Well, my friend Sarah Fields got me in contact with Greg Bolden to do a podcast because I had some other news coming out, and we got into talking. It's a great podcast, man. We talked about a lot of stuff, and we talked about being in the California desert, right there by Jacumbia. I was out there with OMG. April Sparks was out there. And she found she's really good at finding stuff out there. She's got a really good eye for that, passports, money, all that stuff she finds. And she found a phone, and she charged it up, and guess what? It was unlocked. I mean, and then start going through it, and it's like...
Let me interrupt you. Was it an iPhone, or what was it, Android?
It was like a crappy, like one you'd buy at the gas station kind of Android. Just, barely a smartphone. But yeah, so it was a smartphone because it had all the apps and everything. And started going through the Telegram messages and everything. And we had a guy who speaks Arabic, a guy from Iraq, was actually out there on the crew. Lucky for us. And this is April Sparks' find, by the way. I know I was the one on the podcast and everything, but and her tag on Twitter is April Sparks 1890. So definitely follow her and watch those videos. I think the part 2 video where they do like updated translations, she crowdsourced some of that. And it's really interesting because they're calling the guy that they're communicating with. There's one guy giving them directions and telling them, hey, you're going to meet up with this guy here. Try to get as close to San Diego as you can. This guy knows Arabic and Spanish. You're going to be meeting up with him. And they kept saying, yes, teacher. And so teacher, we've heard that before with different cells using that. There was the attacks in India. Gosh, I can't remember what year that was, but they used a telephone service to the United States. They were able to capture that audio, and that's the exact same kind of way they talk. And the biggest thing with that is that this guy who was on the phone with this, on the Telegram chat, there was no, hey, how you doing? What'd you have for lunch? It was very, very businesslike. It was very, like you would in the military. So I think there was several people in that group. That was the only phone found. And after April charged it up, they were still calling the phone. So I'm guessing that guy, I'm not sure what happened to him. He could have gone to ICE detention. But I know a lot of people have gone to ICE detention and they investigate him for a month and let him out. So we just don't know. But we know there was other guys with him too.
So the messages start coming through, and you got it translated. What were you thinking?
So luckily there was that awesome dude who was from Iraq there, who was helping us translate, and we're hearing it at first, because here's what I do. I always take things with a grain of salt to not sensationalize and jump the gun, right? Even if I know something to be true, I'm going to go, let's hold back on it for a second and just try to be as neutral as possible thinking about it, right? Because you don't want to jump to conclusions. But the more we go through it and the more they're calling the phone over and over again, where are you? Where are you? And we're hearing the messages. It's very businesslike, and it's like, yeah, this is definitely something. This is not just some Syrian guy. Because at first I thought, oh, maybe it's two Syrian guys, they're buddies that are coming across. But no, once they started translating, going, oh, they're talking to this guy, over here. They're calling him teacher. It's like, oh yeah, this is definitely something. So, and April didn't put those videos out for a while, and April's been saying like where nobody's contacted her trying to look through the phone as far as the government or anybody official. So it seems to be up to us these days. I know plenty of people who have taken phones, Chinese phones and stuff to the government, to DHS, and maybe they looked into it, maybe they didn't. We just don't know.
Do you remember what some of those exact messages were?
Well, they're in in April's videos there, but it was like the guy's like, okay, we're somewhere. Where we were is Jacumbia, so it's not all the way by San Diego, but that's the biggest city around. So I think, is it Temecula close out there? I'm trying to remember. But anyways, so we're not really next to San Diego, not like near Tijuana and all that. So that's where they were trying to go. So I remember them being kind of confused. I think we're near San Diego. I'm not sure. He's like, well, get to San Diego as fast. The teacher guy's like, we'll get to San Diego as fast as possible. I think one of the last messages is like, yeah, we're crossing now. So they must have come through that gap in the fence there, or possibly straight over the fence.
Yeah, I gotta get her on. I want to talk to her.
Sure.
So, and this ties into me. I was with the Sarah Adams podcast, and you said you saw clips of that, and in relation to how many people are over here over the last 4+ years. I mean, planning attacks, planning.
Oh, 100%. Well, we've already seen terrorist attacks. What happened in New Orleans, right? That was, American citizen. But the thing to me that's very interesting is does anybody even talk about that anymore?
No, the story's already gone. It's already gone, that story.
So that, to me, I see things happening like South Africa, where it's piece by piece. They're going to keep breaking into people's houses. They're going to keep doing all these little things, these smaller terrorist attacks, and the media is going to just wash it over, gaslight you, go, no, that's not what really happened, and they're going to keep doing it and keep doing it. It happened in England, it happened in Australia. They just keep backing you into a corner and telling you, no, we're not backing you into a corner. So I think there's going to be a lot of gaslighting from the media, the bureaucrats, the bad guys in the government, and and the other thing is, too, how many people are really in this country illegally? Do you ever trust the DHS numbers from the last 4 years?
What do you think that number is, Taylor, realistically?
I'd say 40+ million. I mean, we're talking about not just over the last 4 years, but just, illegal aliens in the country, 40 to 50. I could see.
Yeah, that's what Aud and I, another thing Aud and I were talking about yesterday. It's like, how mass deportation, it's not possible.
No, those numbers are just not possible. Just remember what they had to do and all the weird things they were doing and packing people into trucks and throwing kids over the border just to get them here, and how they're sleeping in the Chicago police station and everything else. You would need equal infrastructure to take them back, right? And we're Americans. We're good people. We're good-hearted people. So we're going to treat them better than they were coming into the country. We're not going to treat them like the criminal elements and these NGOs that just, threw them across the border. We're going to give them a dignified, ride or airplane trip back to the country, because that's who we are. We don't stoop to that level. We have civility and humanity in our hearts. So we don't want these people here, but we're not going to treat them like dogs to deport them. If they're being deported, that's all we want, right?
And I mean, let's say 40 million. You couldn't even do 10% of that. If you tried to 4 million, find 4 million of them throughout the country, it's not possible.
So you got 50 to 60 people that fit on one coach bus, right? When they had the 10,000 Haitians under the bridge in Del Rio, you know how long that took to get them out of there? So you got 50 to 60 people you can put on a bus, and then I don't know how many you can put on like a a C-17 Galaxy or a C-130 or a 737, but you got to think there's only so many planes flying. There's only so many seats in those planes. You have to do the math, and that's as many as you can deport. So I think that's why Homan and Trump are really focusing on these criminal aliens now. Get the worst of the bunch first, and then take it from there.
So, did I miss it? What was the conclusion then of the phone that you guys found out there? Like, what do you think is about to happen, or what?
Well, I think so many cells have come across from so many different countries, and from what I got back from my friend, who's a high-speed military guy, was he said that's a cell. He did not specify terrorist cell or anything else. You can use your imagination how many different cells there could be. They could be spies. They could be doing espionage. They could be doing a lot of things. Most likely, that's what most people think of. But we don't have, you know what I mean? They weren't talking about their plans of what they were going to do in America on the phone. So we can only guess. But that's just a solid example of if that's happening, if we happen to find that one phone, how many more people have come in? And that's just one group from Syria. I mean, just, how many people come in from North Africa and everything else. I've seen many structures kind of or systems set up. There's a Russian system down here in Texas where they put people in, there's boarding houses of Russians and Ukrainians. They kind of stay in their own network. All these different nationalities have their own network. And I think the biggest thing is the Chinese coming across. These Chinese people are highly motivated and they are very intelligent, and they're going to, in bed, do high-level, long-term espionage. And they may live their whole life in America, you know what I mean? And we might never know that they were spies. We've had that happen before with Russian spies. So I think the espionage and sabotage is really what to look out for more than a regular old terrorist attack is something to point at going, hey, we need to pay attention to this. But just like that lithium plant catching on fire in San Francisco, the wildfires, stuff like that, I think that is if you want to attack America, that's the smart way to do it because, you can have the benefit of the doubt there, which the Democrats really love, right?
Yeah, I'm going to venture to say that those people from Syria were not from the Rotary Club.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know. We have such a mess in our hands that, and we're just touching on things here. Look at all the people that are here now and the capabilities of them to do damage. And, you got people from the Middle East and people from China. And I mean, what's to say if things escalate in the Middle East, there's not cells here that'll just, to case in point to what you just found, what you guys found.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also got to think about, and how Michael Jan says that there's some fish you can't put in the same fish tank, right? They're going to eat each other. So you have a lot of incompatible cultures coming to America. And one example he gives, which I think is a really great example, is Northern Ireland. You've got Protestants and Catholics separated. They're from the same bloodlines. They are all Irish people, yet you saw how tenaciously they fought each other for so long, right? They had to put up a wall to separate the Protestants from the Catholics in Northern Ireland. What do you think happens when Sikhs and Muslims and, Hindus and Chinese and all these people come together? There's a lot of feuds that we don't even know about, right? In other countries and stuff like that. So, we're going to see violence. I mean, just all types of stuff, not even just directed at Americans, but directed at each other's groups. You will definitely see, and we've already seen it with TDA. You've got different gangs coming in, taking each other's territory. There's going to be a lot of those kind of gang battles, for sure.
Are you optimistic that things will calm down, or from your standpoint, the work that you're doing, there's going to be plenty to do?
Yeah, I think Mexico's going to get really interesting. Is there going to be airstrikes? Is it going to be really, small tactical things that you just hear about later? We don't know what that's going to look like exactly, what military action Mexico is going to look like. I think it's going to be very, small special forces groups. That would be the smart thing to do. And then just bolstering the Mexican government to do their own operations. But it could turn, Mexico is all right now. I can cross the border, no problem, but it could turn very bad. Mexico might want to, check people's IDs coming across, which is something they've never done before. We just don't know how other countries are going to respond to America kind of being emboldened again and trying to set things right. I think a lot of countries are going to see that as a threat, and they're going to be wary about Americans. They're just going to be keeping an eye out for gringos.
What about the idea if something were to happen in Mexico, let's say with the United States military, even if it's, you know, something small like a drone, you know, targeting an individual or something? Autumn was pointing out the fact that, you know, the Mexican people will then unite against the United States if that were to occur.
It's possible, but then so you have, look, the government in Mexico is highly militarized. So if you know, not in all areas, but say some areas on the border, if you call about a domestic dispute, you might have a bunch of guys in full tactical gear and rifles come into your house to take a regular police call. And you know, once you equip people like that, they start acting more like military and less like your local police, and they just become, you know, this you know, part of the government. You know what I mean? And so they're not very personable. They're not going to really, you know, hear your story. They're just gonna, you know, they're gonna lock you up or whatever they're gonna do. So you've got the Mexican people in between a militarized government and then a paramilitary organization, the criminal elements, and your regular Mexican who's just trying to make a buck and go home and raise his family. I mean, you got to feel for those people. And a lot of Mexicans, they don't want to go to America. They like their life in Mexico. So I think that you could have some people unite, but here's the thing. People don't like what the criminal elements do too. If the criminal elements really wanted to gain the trust of the people, they would stop all their little protection, you know, rackets that they do, and maybe do some more community engagement stuff, you know, start handing out food and doing that kind of stuff and giving themselves, like doing a Hearts and Minds campaign. If they were to do that, then yes, they could absolutely turn the people against the government even more. But like when you go to southern Mexico, I've talked to Mexican soldiers that, you know, when you get to southern Mexico or some towns, they see those criminal elements as their saviors, as the good guys, and they see the government as the bad guys, which, you know, who knows what's happened in those towns. But, you know, we've heard of mass graves in the past, committed, you know, a lot of mass murder committed by both sides.
Are the cartels too powerful right now? That, I mean, they basically control the Mexican government. Am I getting that right?
So what I've heard from interviews, I would say yes. What I've heard from interviews, though, is like, you know, how big or how powerful is the cartels? They say as big and powerful as the government lets us be. So the government at any time can bring the hammer down, but it could be conducive for the government to have some criminal elements in certain areas fighting against other factions. There's a million ways you could play it. And but yeah, I would say in a large part they're bought off completely. I mean, corruption in Mexico is just everywhere. It's part of the culture.
So what's your next assignment, you know?
So I'll just stay tracking on Lupe and these open border groups, because everybody wants to say, oh, like, oh, don't worry about them anymore. Trump's in office. They have no power. Well, this organization, Lupe, has over 8,000 members in the Rio Grande Valley. They're also connected with the Brown Berets, which call themselves a paramilitary organization who are about open borders. They're completely Marxist. They hate the American government. They hate white people. They are openly racist. I was attacked by several of them earlier in the week. So
are they? Let me interrupt you, Taylor. Are they Mexican, or what is their ethnicity?
Yeah, they call themselves Chicanos, so a Mexican American. Yeah.
So what's the name of the other group you said? Lupe.
Lupe, La Unión de Pueblo Antaro, which was started by Cesar Chavez. And if you watch, you know, I didn't know enough about Cesar Chavez, and I've been digging in more recently. He didn't want illegal aliens here. He wanted the farm workers that were already in America to unite and be able to have a decent wage and everything, and help in, you know, not be able to, be able to live a decent life. But he saw all the illegal aliens coming in as scabs. And what did he do? He did the protests. He did the, the boycotts and stuff. So all these big farm companies, these corporate farms, would just bring in illegals. So he saw them as the bad guys in the situation. And now this whole thing's been perverted. This Lupe thing's been perverted to just a big, Marxist. It's funded by George Soros. So I think that's who's really controlling it.
So Lupe it's a Hispanic group, but they're on the United States side.
Yes, they're in the Rio Grande Valley. That's like their main area. So, but they have partner groups all over border areas. Basically, any farm workers union or farm workers rights organization, they're connected with. So they do a lot of things. They do the farm worker stuff, but they are really politically active in opposing anything against the border. Any border security measure they see as racism, it doesn't even make sense what they're saying. So they oppose the Lake and Riley Act big time. They protested against it. And the Lake and Riley Act is a pretty darn mild, common sense border security measure where ICE can basically put out a detainer on criminal aliens so the local police or whatever can hold them longer. It's very similar to that kind of stuff. And they're saying that this is racist and this is terrible. So they're willing to say, screw Lake and Riley and her family, screw everybody that dies from an illegal alien. You're racist. I mean, what? I can't even get them to explain it. I tried to get them to explain it, and they wouldn't even, and they can't wrap their head around it. It's so to me, that's telling them that they don't care about America. They don't care if you die. They care nothing about you. You can't give them an inch, or they'll take a mile.
How have they had to pivot then since this change?
They've just gotten more violent and erratic. So these people are Marxists, and they've been in these bubbles for so long where everybody thinks exactly the same. Of course, they talk about diversity, but they don't know anything about it. So they have basically this echo chamber, and they are not used to debating or just even disagree. They can't disagree with someone, or else they have a mental breakdown. And that's what happened. A woman attacked me like crazy after the crowd identified me. And it's they're calling me a racist. They're calling me all these things, and it's like I've taken a Venezuelan woman out of the river who was drowning. I've bought so many meals and helped people get jobs in Mexico when they're in the camps. I had a Venezuelan family basically take me in as one of their own, and I had a great relationship with them. They were great people, and they went through this NGO. They invited me to the NGO, and I was able to get so much information on the government-sponsored trafficking network in Matamoros that I've just had so many good relationships with illegal aliens coming across, and I don't think any of these Lupe people, do any of that. They don't have humanity in their hearts. So no matter who I'm talking to, I'm going to treat as a decent human being. If I like you or not, that's just the way you need to present yourself. And these people have no compassion. So it's just crazy to me that someone who's against open borders and all this other stuff, because I want people to have a good life in their own country, I'm considered the worst guy ever and a bad guy, while these people are just full of hate, don't know what they're talking about, and sending so many kids into sex trafficking, so many people to die along the way in Mexico. It's just sad.
Where can people find you, Taylor?
RGVTruth 1 on X, and then RGVTruth on all those social media. It'd be Facebook, a little bit of Instagram as well. Oh, and Rumble.
Do you think do you envision yourself going to another city like Chicago or New York to cover?
If I have funding, sure. But, I pay to do this job. Every once in a while I get, a good contract, and I got to live off of that for a while. But hey, if I got the funding, I'll work 24/7. I love what I do. But yeah, I think visiting some major cities in New York is, there's so much going on there. The amount of immigrants there is just wild. So yeah, I'd love to do something like that.
You've worked with some amazing people, man. You ever sit back and like reflect on stuff that you've been doing?
I am so blessed. I'm so blessed to be doing what I'm doing. I just picked up a GoPro and started running around, and then Michael Yan and Ann Vandersteel with Operation Burning Edge found me down here, and it's just been amazing since then. And I'm maybe 2 to 3 degrees away from anything I see in the conservative sphere on the news or whatever. If I see something, I can text that person going, "Hey, I just saw you on TV." It's amazing. I absolutely, yeah. I sit back and I really do count my blessings. I just can't thank everybody out there that supported me and watches my stuff, and people like you that have me on podcasts. I can't thank you enough. This is the best job in the world, even though I pay to do it. I couldn't imagine ever working in an office or anything like this. This is the best.
How long do you think you can do this type of work, being the physical and mental toll it takes?
Well, there's a Marty Robbins song that I think really explains it well. As long as I can throw that rope and brand that calf, you know what I mean? I'll be a doggone cowboy all my life.
So no signs of slowing down right now?
No, man. We're just getting started.
Taylor, thanks for doing this. Thanks for everything. Thank you for everything you've done and you're going to continue to do. And I look forward to more conversations in 25.
Thank you, sir.
Mic drop.